Hello all, I'm Sai and in today's video I'm bringing to you my July reading wrap-up. July was a really great reading month for me because I managed reading a total of 23 books in total. I think it's my highest in the past 2 years if I'm not wrong, and I also managed to finish a total of 15 books from my physical TBR and listen to 8 audiobooks. The audiobooks were mostly short audiobooks, so it was easier for me to get through. And I also want to say that because of reading so much in July, I got very tired towards the end of the month. I don't want it to happen to me again. So in August, I'm just going to take a chiller and not push myself to read more. I'm just going to enjoy what I read and not try to make these crazy numbers and all work because I don't think it will be good for me. Having said that, without any further ado, let's get into the books right away. Starting with the physical books as usual. First, I want to talk about the series which I finished reading in July. These are not the books which I read back to back, but I can say that I finished both of these in a span of 2 weeks along with other books that I was reading. And the series is called The Epic of Kautilya by Deepak Thomas. The 2 books that have been published so far inside the series are Born to be King and Way of the Rakshasa. I read both of these books in the first 2 weeks of the month, and this is definitely a series which I enjoyed so much reading because it's an Indian fantasy series and it is suitable for anyone who's 13 years and above in age because it doesn't have anything adult to say as such. At the same time, it can be enjoyed by adults also because the story is not simple. The basic premise of the series is that we have our main character named Kautilya and she's the princess of this kingdom, which is just a version of ancient India. And along with her, she has 5 elder brothers. Technically, all of them are of the same age, but the story moves like they are her elder brothers here. Because of a sacrifice that was done by the king only, all these 6 children were born. And those sacrifices determine the kind of powers that these 6 children have. They are all the kinds of powers that different kinds of birds have. And the 5 guys who are born before Kautilya have the abilities of 5 birds of prey. So they are basically called the raptors. And Kautilya alone has this ability of a parrot, because of which she can literally learn anything very easily. And any text that she sees, she can memorize it very easily. What all happens in Kautilya's life and how she has to fight for the throne is what we see in the first book. And the second book is that of a different character named Adi, whom we see here in the first book. I can say that both of these books stand on their own, but in order to get the complete context of book 2, you have to read book 1. And I'll say that start with this book and then move on to this one because both of them are equally great. So I'll not suggest you to skip this book and then go to this one. I personally enjoyed both of them very much. And there's also this prequel series that has been started by the author. I think that book was published like a couple of years back. I want to go forward and read that book too. This was really fun to read and I'm eagerly waiting to see the future books in the series. Even though it's not a cliffhanger in any way for book 2, the author has written the books in such a way that he sets up book 2 with kind of like a epilogue in book 1 and he sets up book 3 with like kind of an epilogue in book 2. I like that format also very much. It is super easy to read, very action-packed. It has hints of Indian mythology tied in here, but it is not the same story of the Ramayana and Mahabharata that almost all fantasy series in our country are trying to publish themselves as. This is definitely unique, very fun and action-packed to read, so just go forward and try it. I rated both of them 4.5 stars each. Next, we have an adult psychological thriller, which is A Slow Fire Burning by Paula Hawkins. This is the 3rd book by the author and it's also the 3rd book that I've read by her. She has published 2 books after this one, which I've not read so far. And this one is just as messed up as The Girl on the Train as well as Into the Water. Here we follow our main character Laura, who's not doing mentally well, and because of that her physical body is also very different from that of other people. That is the way in which it behaves, and Laura is caught coming out of a house with blood on her clothes after a person in that house has been killed. So the circumstantial evidence shows that Laura is the person who's the killer of that person, but there is this other woman named Miriam who knows that Laura did not do the crime because she knows Laura for quite a bit now. She tries to help Laura, and parallelly along with these 2 women there is also this other woman named Carla who's also super depressed because her nephew has been brutally murdered just a few days back. How all these storylines come together and what happens here is the plot of the book. It is brutal, it is confusing, it will play with your mind just like the author's other 2 books that I've read so far. And as a whole, I can say that this book was a really well-built thriller. I did not want to put it down at all. I just wanted to keep on reading it, and I think I finished reading the entire book in just a single day or so. It was a working day too, so it was that good. Yet I can say that it is not as good as her previous other 2 books. So I rated this one 3.5 out of 5 stars. The next book is another conclusion to a series. So with this, I finished 2 series in July. The book is Abhorsen by Garth Nix, which is the 3rd and final book inside the Abhorsen trilogy or 3rd book inside the Old Kingdom series, which if I'm not wrong has 3 to 4 more books. But with this trilogy ends. Since it's the end of a series, I cannot tell more about it, but I can say that This was fun to read just as the first two books, Sabriel and Lirael, but it was not as much interesting and lovable for me to read. Okay, we have the same set of characters from books 1 and 2 who are acting together in this one also, but there was the sense of drawing in that the first two books had that this didn't for me. The writing was just as good, the characters were really well developed, the story was also unfolding itself really well. The magic that the author explores inside the series is very delicious to read about. It's death magic, and the way in which the author goes about it is really nice. Sometimes it's really clear and sometimes it's very obscure, and I think that's the thing which makes the magic inside the series feel very interesting and drawing towards. Since it was not as good as the first two books for me, I rated this one 4 out of 5 stars. Still, it's definitely not a bad ending in any way. Next, we have a literary fiction book, and it was very fun for me to read. It is The 100-Year-Old Man Who Climbed Out of the Window and Disappeared by Jonas Jonasson. Here we follow our main character, Alan, who's a 100-year-old man, and as the title of the book suggests, he's living in an oldish home and he escapes from there on his 100th birthday because he does not like to be there. And once he gets out of there, he just goes on this crazy adventure that is completely unbelievable to have been had by a 100-year-old man. He is not the only old person here though. We have a cast of 4 to 5 characters, and of all the main characters whom we see here, the youngest one is I think 70 or 80 years old. The book happens in 2005 and our main character here was born in 1905. He has been through both the world wars and he has had a lot of significance when it comes to world history as in a fictitious way. It is very funny to read, super dark at instances, and towards the end it felt very unrealistic to me. The whole story itself is unrealistic, but the way in which the author made it funny and accessible was really nice, but towards the end it just felt like a bit too much. If you're someone who wants to read a very different story which is unlike anything that you would have ever read before or seen before, definitely go forward and try this one. It will also give you a good laugh. I ended up rating this one 4 out of 5 stars again. Next, we have a fantasy book which is also kind of a Shakespeare reimagining, and it is Lady Macbeth by Ava Reid. I read only one other Ava Reid before this one, and it was A Study in Drowning. I read it last year. I read it twice actually because I just loved her writing style very much. The story was also very captivating to read. In this one, the writing was just as beautiful as A Study in Drowning, but the story as such was quite weak if you ask me, because it's basically supposed to be a retelling of the Macbeth story with Lady Macbeth as the main character. But what happens here is it feels more like an imagined story of Macbeth and not the original Macbeth story itself. If you have read Macbeth in school, you probably know the story of it, and you know that Lady Macbeth is the main antagonist inside the play. Here she's supposed to be the protagonist and we are seeing her story from her own point of view, and she's shown as a 17-year-old princess who's married off to the Scottish prince, a Scottish king if I'm not wrong. What all she does here is what we see, and the power that Lady Macbeth has inside this book is anyone who sees directly into her eyes will be hypnotized by her beauty, and that's kind of the dark power that she possesses. The best part about this book was the writing of the author, because I could not stop annotating. Just see, it's a very short book, okay? You can read this in maximum a day or so because it doesn't have those many pages, and it also moves on really fast and smooth. I enjoyed the writing very much. The characters were okay. The atmosphere building of the book or the world building of the book was really nice. It was dark. I felt the cold at many instances. Okay, I'm living in Chennai, okay? July has been so effing hot, but despite that I was able to feel the cold because the writing was that good here. The story was not great, but the writing was good, and I did enjoy the mood of the book very much, so I rated it 3.5 out of 5 stars. Next, we have another literary fiction book, and it is an Indian book, which is Kasthuri Graduates by Hitaprada. I worked with the author for this one, and it is already published in the channel. It will be linked in the description. You can go forward and check it out if you're interested. We basically follow our main character Kasthuri here, who was born in 1910, and from then to the end of her life, we see what all Kasthuri goes through. She's from a very conservative family in Karnataka during 1920 when she's 10 years old, and she's a very bright student. She has 4 siblings born with her, and she's the brightest of them all. Her father Keshavamurthy wants Kasthuri to graduate during a time in which women being educated itself was kind of a taboo. What all happens in Kasthuri's life and how she graduates, at what age she graduates, what all has happened in her family and in her life is what we see here. It is a very predictable story, but the best part about the book, if you ask me, is the writing of the author. It is very simple to read, and the author builds the time period in which the story is taking place and to the time in which it is moving really well. It is very beginner friendly, and if you're someone who wants to start with a really comfortable, easy, predictable Indian book, you can definitely go forward and try this one. You can read it just over a weekend because it is again not that big. I rated this one also 4 out of 5 stars. Next, I continued on with the series which I've been meaning to finish for quite a few years now. I started rereading it last year, and it is the Throne of Glass series, the 6th book inside the series, which is Empire of Storms by J Maas. I should say that of all the books that I've read in the series so far, Book 2, Crown of Midnight, has been the best, and Book 5, which is Queen of Shadows, is just below that one. They are almost equal, but I like Crown of Midnight a lot more. And after those two books, this comes in line because so much happens here. The author just builds the world and explores it to such a great extent. And Book 7 inside the series, which is Tower of Dawn, also happens parallelly with the happenings inside this book, and it focuses on another character inside the series. I'm going to read that in August, and I'm very pumped for it. I'll try to finish reading both the books in August itself, but I'm not sure because both of them are really huge. This one was super fun to read. I did like the characters, and there are some character interactions which I was craving for, which happened finally here. The relationships that the author cements inside this book were also much more practical to read, and I liked them compared to the relationships that she showed in the previous books. So yeah, definitely worth reading and definitely worth this huge size. So I rated this one 4.5 out of 5 stars. Next we have an adult contemporary romance, and it is Funny Story by Emily Henry. There's nothing different about this book, guys, okay? It's just the same as any of her other books. We just have the main characters changing, their professions changing, but all of them deal with childhood trauma, and one of the two partners helps the other to get out of the trauma and build a romantic relationship. And the only thing that she does different compared to other romance authors is that she makes her characters completely adults who are 30 and above in age, so they are quite mature compared to the normal romance books that we read. Apart from that, there is nothing special about this book, and I think I've reached a point of saturation where I don't want to read any more of Emily Henry's books if they are going to be the same story repeated over and over again. This doesn't mean that I hate the books that I've read by her before this one, but here I think I've had my limit. I don't want to read any of such stories just with different names to characters over and over again. If she comes up with something totally different, even inside the romance genre itself, I'm fine. But if it's the same shit which is going to be tossed over and over again, I'm done. I rated this one 3.5 out of 5 stars. Next, we have a short story collection that is translated from Malayalam into English, and it is Do Not Go to the Jungle by Shihabuddin Poithumkadavu, translated to English by J Devika. This is a collection of horrifying stories that have been translated from Malayalam into English. I personally cannot read or write in Malayalam, but I can understand people speaking it to some extent because, I'm Tamil. So here we see different stories. Okay, some are short, some are really long, and all of them deal with some kind of supernatural presence or the normal world itself, but things which are completely terrifying about it. While you're reading these stories, you'll feel the sense of fear inside you. It's something that all of us as humans can experience while reading this collection. It's not completely supernatural also all the time, okay? Some of these stories are very normal, very grounded. They can happen in anyone's life, but the extent to which the writing gives us the fear is what I loved about this collection very much. Again, it's a short collection, but it took quite a lot of time for me to read because, since it's translated, it's quite dense. It's hardly 200 pages long, and I took 2 days on my commute to finish reading this one because first, I didn't want to put it down. I wanted to finish it because it just gripped me very much. Second is that it is very dense and it was a bit difficult for me to read. Still, it was really good, and I will keep on recommending this in more videos in the future, so do look out for it. I rated this one also 4 out of 5 stars. Next, we have a trans Tamil memoir, and it is Thanuja by Thanuja Singam, translated from Tamil to English by Kiran Keshavamurthy. I wanted to read this book in Tamil only, but it was not available for me on Amazon in Tamil. So I just went forward and bought the English copy because I just wanted to read that book then. If you're a Tamil person, I'm pretty sure that you know who Thanuja Singam is. She is a trans woman activist who speaks a lot about trans rights as well as LGBTQ plus rights on the internet. She is a Sri Lankan Tamil trans woman, and she grew up in Madurai in Tamil Nadu for almost 10 years and then moved to Germany because her father was there. What all happened in Thanuja's life during the migration as well as transition is what she tells about inside this book. It is very honest, very brutal, super dark, and if you're going to read this book, please do look out for trigger warnings because there is so much here. I knew that I was going to read something which is hard and cannot be read by anyone, but the amount of toughness and amount of difficulty in trans people's lives was staggering for me to read while I was reading this book. I already have dedicated review for this book in the channel. You can find the video in the description below. It's always linked. It was astonishing. I'm always dumbstruck while trying to express my views about this book, and I'd say that if you're someone who wants to understand trans people more, which I think everyone should be, just go forward and read this, but read it slow, take it on slow, because it's not going to be easy, as the life that they live itself is not easy. It was brutal, it was honest, it made me cry, it made my heart break. I just can't stop thinking about the book, and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars very easily. Next, we have another short story collection, and this was very disappointing for me, and it is Men Without Women by Haruki Murakami, translated from Japanese into English by multiple authors. Now, I just want to say that this is not my first Murakami book, okay? I think I've read like more than 5 or 6 books of him, both fiction as well as non-fiction together in the past few years, and I've not found any of his other books as boring as this one. I know that it's very popular, many people just love the short story collection very much, but I just don't understand why, because his writing is not as engrossing as in his other books for me in this one, because I felt quite bored while I was reading most of the stories, and I did did not understand the context of any of these stories at all. It may also be because of the fact that I went in with expectations of the same kind of magical realism and fantasticism that all of the stories have, which this didn't, if you ask me. There was also a huge lack of cats. I have a video for this one also already filmed and edited. It will be coming out in the next 1 or 2 weeks probably. Still, it was quite disappointing for me. I might reread it in order to try whether it works out for me on the second go or not, but I'm not sure though. But for the first time, this was quite disappointing and I rated it 3 out of 5 stars. Next, we have a short classic novel and it is The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. I know everyone knows how popular The Bell Jar is. I've been meaning to read this also for the past 4 to 5 years and finally I got to read it in July only. I thought that the language of the book will be difficult since it's a classic, but trust me guys, it's one of the most beginner friendly easy classics that I've read so far. It doesn't mean that the writing is very simple that anyone can go for and read it. You must be able to handle a little bit of gorgeous writing, I can say. Each and every sentence that has been written by the author inside this book is just incredibly gorgeous. It is kind of a semi-autobiographical fiction. We follow our main character Esther here, who has just finished college, and because of winning a competition, she gets to stay in this hotel along with some other women her age, and they just do like modeling and stuff and get to explore the city, but not at their own expense. While she's there in New York, she experiences some kind of mental health issues, and because of it, her life just starts deteriorating. What all happens in Esther's life in New York as well as in her hometown after she comes from New York is what we see here. It is incredibly well written. The only fault that I found with this book is that the writing is quite racist at times because the author uses racial slurs and descriptions to say how unattractive some people from different races are very easily. Apart from that, I don't have any complaints about this book at all. It was so much fun to read. Fun in a way that, speaking in literary terms, it was fun for me to read, but literally it was haunting. Okay, because this time happened to literally everyone inside the world. It was super great. I will reread this for sure in the future and annotate it heavily. I rated this one 4 out of 5 stars just because of that racism in it. The last physical book is yet another conclusion to a series, and it is The Stone Sky by N.K. Jemisin, which is the last and final book inside the Broken Earth trilogy. And guys, this series is incredible. Okay, while you reach the end of book 3, you'll understand the kind of writing style that the author chose in book 1, and what all she does here is incredible. And for me, of all the 3 books inside the series, this one has the most straightforward plot. Okay, in books 1 and 2, you are still confused of whose story you're following at times, and only towards the end of each and every book, you see everything coming together perfectly well. But here, from the first chapter itself, everything is really clear. Okay, you also get to see the earth speaking to you in the beginning of the book, which is quite haunting and frightening and fun also to read. Parallelly, the amount of themes that the author explores here, kind of representation that she does, not just in terms of different races, different sexualities, and different physicalities, but also how we as humans need to be more careful, or we can literally experience the 5th season at some point in time. It is incredibly well written, super masterfully crafted, and I can't say anything more, guys. Okay, I have another book by N.K. Jemisin on my shelf, which is The City We Became. It's the first book in a duology. I'll probably finish reading that duology also in 2025 itself. Let's wait and see. This was spectacular and I rated it 4.5 out of 5 stars. I'm sorry if I said The Stone Sky was the final physical book because it's not. It is this one, which is The Devourers by Indra, which is the book club pick for July. I'm sorry that I had to finish this at last, okay, in the month. I started reading this, I think, in the first week of July itself, but it was very slow for me to read, okay? Slow doesn't mean it's bad. It is really good. And I wanted to experience each and every word of the story. That's why I did not speed through it. So here, we follow 2 different stories. One of our main character named Alok in Calcutta in the present day, and he meets this stranger who addresses himself to be a half werewolf in a mela, and that stranger gives Alok a manuscript and asks him to transcribe it into normal paper by typing it. And when Alok is transcribing the story, he sees the story of this woman named Sira during the Mughal Empire in India in this place called Mumtazabad, which is near to present day Agra now. What all happened in Sira's life and why is Alok transcribing the story? Who's the stranger who's basically paying Alok to just type out words on paper? This all we see here. This is a story about shapeshifters. It is very frightening, it is very dark, and it is super delicious to read. Okay, the writing of the author here is top notch. I have not read this kind of writing ever before. It gets very dark. Okay, so you cannot read this book at long stretches at all. I think I was able to read this book for more than 1 hour at a stretch only towards the end because I wanted to know what's going to happen. I wanted to know how it was going to end. It was completely worth it. Okay, I am very glad that I chose this as a book club pick. Just see the amount of tabs I have here because the writing is gorgeous. There are so many things that happen, and he has a lot of footnotes also which explains some things that are happening inside the story. Very brilliant. I know that the author has not written that many books if I'm not wrong, and it's also a standalone fantasy, so you need not have the fear of committing to a fantasy series if you're going to read this book. I loved it very much, and even though it's not the best story that I've read so far, it was very engaging, and I was able to get into the world of the shapeshifters every time I started reading this book again and again. So I rated this one 4.25 out of 5 stars. Now moving on to the audiobooks, all of which I listen to from the Audible Plus catalog on Audible. The first one is How to Train Your Mind by Chris Bailey. This is an Audible original program if I'm not wrong, and it is hardly like 3 to 4 hours long. I was able to finish it in a single sitting while I was working parallelly, and in this book the author basically talks about meditation for beginners as a means to productivity. It was very basic, okay? I've been meditating for 4 to 5 years now, and nothing inside this book was new to me, so I can understand that the target audience for this book is people who are beginners to meditation. So if you're someone like that, you can definitely go forward and try this. It will be helpful. But for me, it felt very basic and I rated this one 3 out of 5 stars. Next, we have a thriller book, and it is from a super popular thriller author recently. I've not read any of her books before, and this one was quite fun for me to read. It was not great, but it was okay. And the book is The Perfect Son by Freida Mcfadden. In this book, we follow a family in which there is this teenage boy, and he is considered to be the most menacing person inside the house. He's so menacing that he keeps on doing bad things to people, and he's not at all caught in the act ever. During this time, what happens is a girl who goes on a date with this guy goes missing, and his mother knows that he's not okay. He's not normal. He thinks that her son is a psychopath, and she's also sure that the disappearance of the girl has something to do with her son. Whether she finds it out or not, and what all happens inside this family is what we see here. It was nice to read, but the ending was not satisfying for me to read because I'll not reveal anything, okay, because it will spoil the book. I know that many people will love the story even with that. The writing of the author was really good. It kept me hooked. It felt like the same kind of writing that Alex McLeod has. He doesn't write the best thrillers if you ask me, but the writing just keeps us very much engaged with the story, which exactly happened here also for me. I want to read more books by this author. This one was a good first read. Since it was not that great an ending for me, I rated this one also 3 out of 5 stars. Next, we have a non-fiction book, which is Art and Fear by David Bales and Ted Orland. In this book, the authors talk about why artists find it difficult to go forward and perform art. It's not something that has to do with validation anyway, but despite that, all of us artists in some way have this huge fear inside us because of the fact that we don't know what art will go big, what art will be loved by people, what will not at all be. Both of the authors show a lot of artists from different fields of life as examples for this one, and it was a really good book for me to read. I think if you're an artist of some kind, any kind, you can definitely relate to this book very heavily. I don't think it is something which is a must read also, but it is a light read which can give you hope towards finding your way through art and, not always having that huge fear of the blank sheet or the white canvas. It was nice to read. It kind of diluted the fear that artists have towards performing art, at least for me, and I rated this one 4 out of 5 stars. Next, we have 3 books from an adult sci-fi series, and the 3 books are Artificial Condition, Rogue Protocol, and Exit Strategy by Martha Will, which are the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th books from the Murderbot Diaries series. It's a collection of novellas, and if I'm not wrong, the 5th book, which I'm yet to read, is alone a novel. I think that's the reason why I was not able to finish it in July also. So in this series, we basically follow our main character who's a murder bot. They are kind of like cyborgs, okay? They have organic body parts. At the same time, they are robots in specific. The main duty is to just go forward and kill humans who they are programmed to get. That's why it's called a murder bot. But the murder bot that we follow here is kind of emotional. It has been with humans for a long time, and because of this, it has acquired a lot of human emotions and sensations, and it also consumes a lot of human media, especially series and serials. Because of it, it is depressed and it finds human beings just like most of us very annoying. What all happens with the murder bot here is what we see here in these 3 books. It is very fun to read. The voice of murder bot in specific in the audiobooks is something which I love the most. There are 2 versions of the audiobooks actually. The one is the dramatized adaptation and the other one is the normal audiobook. I listened to the normal audiobooks only. It was very fun to read and I want to continue on with the series. I did not like the first book when I read it 2 to 3 years back, but now I think I am more and more to a series like this. I rated all the 3 books inside the series 4 stars each. Next, we have a book which I'm not able to put into the specific genre. Okay, it's kind of like The Alchemist. I cannot put The Alchemist inside any genre. So, the book is The Gentleman from Peru by Andre Asiman. I've read the Call Me By Your Name duology by the author and I like both of the books inside the series. And I had similar expectations for this one also, that it'll be painfully sad. But here it is not like that. Okay, it is sad, but it is not very painful. Here we follow our main character who's a man from Peru. And he meets this group of young people when they are on a vacation, and he has this ability to just predict what people are doing in life and what are all happening in their life. In general, just information about them just by seeing them. By doing that, he gets an acquaintance with this group of youngsters, and of that, there's this young woman who seems to be kind of attracted to him, not in a romantic or sexual way, but they both have this kind of affinity towards each other. Why is there this affinity? What all has happened in both of their lives individually, and what is the reason behind the kind of pull that they are experiencing towards each other? What we see here? It's a very short audiobook. I think it's just over 3 hours long. You can finish it in a single sitting again. There are two ways in which you can interpret the story. One is very romantic and sad. The other is sad yet a bit creepy. I felt it was sad yet a bit creepy. Not in a bad way, but it felt creepy though. So I rated this one also 4 out of 5 stars. Otherwise, it could have been a 5-star for me. And at last, we have a literary fiction book, which is really, really dark to read, okay? But for some reason, it did not affect me to such an extent that I expected it to. And it is The Virgin Suicides by Jeffrey Eugenides. Now, this is a book which was published way back. I think it was published in 1993. I was born in 1998. Okay, so this one is 5 years older than me. In this book, we basically follow this family, a mother, father, and their 4 or 5 daughters. And each and every one of them continuously ends their lives by themselves. Hence the title of the book. But the story of the girls as well as what all are happening inside the girls' lives is not seen by us from their own point of view, but from the points of view of teenage boys inside the same town where these girls are living. It is very frightening to read. It gets very dark and depressing also. So if you're someone who's not dealing that great mentally, don't read this book. But if you're someone who likes experiencing dark stories like me at times, we can definitely go for and try this one. It was really, really well written, and I could feel the sadness of the girls as well as everyone who was seeing their story really well. Also, there was this kind of detachment that the author has from the story, which makes us feel bad and sad for the girls, but it does not affect us to such a huge extent, just like it happens in everyday life for us. It was very, very different for me as an experience to read, and I rated this one also 4 out of 5 stars. So yes, guys, those are all the 23 books which I managed to finish reading in July, which was a great reading month for me. In August, for the book club, we'll be reading Deviance by Shantanu Bhattacharya, which I've already started reading. Again, I'm going to take this book slow because I just read like one chapter from the book and I'm in love with the author's writing because it is very Indian, but it just conveys the mood of the book really, really well. I have my highlighter also here in hand. So yeah, we'll be reading this in August. So if you're interested in reading it with me, please do it during any time of the month and you can discuss it with me on my social media, which is always linked in the description. Don't forget to let me know your July wrap up in the comments below because I'd always like to know what you read and get some recommendations from you guys because you end up giving the best recommendations from me. And if you did find this video useful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. If you want to get more content from me, do subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching and have a great rest of your day.